Hello and welcome back to Tales from the Oval, part two of our survey of the backstory of the greatest cricket ground, the greatest sports ground in the world. And with me again is Jon Surtees. Jon, hi, how are you doing?
Uh, Hello. Yeah, very well. Thanks. Very well. Excited to be getting back into it.
Well, should we crack straight on? Don't want to, we'll take the
I
covers
think.
off,
Yeah. I
put
think
the
we
stumps
should.
up, get
Let's
going.
take the covers off. Yeah, and take ourselves back into the midst of cricketing time.
Well, it really is that. I mean, we are talking the mists of cricket time because, of course, the Oval is the home of Surrey County Cricket Club, and Surrey boasts the oldest kind of authenticated reference to cricket. And that came in 1598. There was a legal case going on about a piece of land near Guildford. And there was a bloke called John Derrick who was, I think he was 59 by this point. And he, kind of point of law, obviously it mattered whether this land had been public. And he said that when he was a schoolboy, he used to play cricket there. So that must have been around 1550, something like that. And he said that he did run and play there at cricket. So I think that
Cricket.
Surrey can legitimately claim to be the home of cricket.
There we
You know, we're
go.
not looking
That
at
is
you,
it.
Lords. But I think Surrey is the
We're
home of cricket, and indeed the home of
we're
women's
barely a minute.
cricket
We're barely a minute
match.
in.
Yeah, Job, the home of
The
women's
home of
cricket
women's
as
cricket.
well.
Go on.
So
This
a
is
place near
incredible.
again outside Guildford. So Guildford, the home of cricket, and it's on Gosden Common near Bramley in 1745.
Right.
The Bramley Maids did play the Maids of Hambledon, and the Bramley Maids had blue ribbons, and the Hambledon Maids red ribbons on their heads. So both
There you
men
go. The
and
Reds and the
women,
Blues.
the earliest cricket matches were in Surrey. But we should
The
probably
home of
zoom
cricket.
in on the Oval itself and on Kennington Common, which we were talking about in the earlier episode, the previous episode. This
Yeah.
great place for
Those of
hanging
you that have.
highwaymen and people called Badger and
Oh, yeah.
chartists and all kinds of things. Um, and we said
Yeah,
then
those of
that,
you who've listened to the first episode will never see Kennington the same way again as you
no,
leave the Oval. It really, opens your eyes to an incredible amount of activity that's gone on there over the previous 1,000 or so years. Just extraordinary stuff in the first episode.
yeah, we were talking in that episode about how cricket is a really important part of the activities. It's by far the most popular team sport in the 18th and then into the 19th century. And I think we
Hmm.
mentioned how the earliest match that was played on Kennington Common that we know of was London against Dartford in June 1724. So it's presumably a home ground
1724.
for London. People were coming out from the city to play on Kennington Common. And then 12 years later, so that's in 1736, you have the first county match to be played there. And that again is Surrey
Yeah.
rather than London. And they're playing against Kent. And
So this is the county of Surrey rather than Surrey County Cricket Club at this point.
exactly so. Yes, exactly. And one of the reasons why cricket is popular is it's a focus for gambling and for random acts of crowd violence. Because obviously, if you can't have a hanging, you can go to a
Well, I'm
cricket
glad that's
match.
changed.
And this particular match, when Kent are playing against Surrey, there's a guy who's a deserter from the army, and there are three redcoats turn up, and they try and grab this deserter. But the populace, it is said,
Yeah.
this is a direct quotation from the time, hearing of the matter, joined and rescued him out of their hands, and after a severe discipline, let them about their business. So severe discipline, I mean, you wouldn't want to have
Wow.
that at the hands of an 18th century
I was
crowd.
going to say a severe discipline at the hand of an 18th century crowd and three redcoats is that's
I think
probably
it's the three redcoats that are
saving
getting
a lot of.
disciplined. So poor guys. But then they
Wow.
shouldn't have tried to
I mean, that is,
shouldn't
yeah,
arrest someone at a cricket match. You can't go around doing that. And
uh,
then the next
absolutely
year,
near the People's Ground.
exactly. Next year, 1737, there's a full blown riot, and we're told that
Full
the
blown.
crowd outrageously threw dirt, dung, etc. And I love that etc. I mean, what do you think?
That's
I mean,
that's doing a lot of
cattle
work.
guts or pig heads, or I mean, who knows? And a spectator actually died after being hit by a brick. So I think that puts the rowdiness at a 2020 in perspective. However,
Yeah, it puts in a bit of context, doesn't it?
John, we were talking in the previous episode how it's the people's ground, but it is also a royal ground. And I'm happy to say
Yeah.
that royalty did feature um, in this story because Surrey, the county, not yet Surrey County Cricket Club, was sponsored by Frederick, who is the son of George II, the eldest son, and therefore the Prince of Wales. And obviously, George II, House of Hanover, they're basically Germans. But Frederick, so he's third generation Hanoverian, he loves cricket. And I don't know whether it's proving, his Englishness or whatever, but he's a massive, massive fan. He sponsors it, and he actually he's patron for a lot of games. And in 1737, there's a match that Surrey play against Kent, and people are so excited to see the Prince of Wales there that they kind of all crowd round him, and a woman breaks her leg, and he very decently
Oh no.
gives her 10 guineas by way of a compensation. But a very tragic end for poor Frederick, because the story is that he gets hit on the chest by a cricket ball and dies. I gather a bit like the
Oh.
Black Prince story. This isn't actually true, but it's a story that's always told, isn't it? That he's the first member of the royal
Yeah.
family to die of a sports injury, certainly a cricket injury.
Wow. And how far would 10 guineas have got you back in
I think it'd be
1737?
pretty good. I mean, it's better than being hanged for forgery, isn't it? I mean, you'd be happy. You'd feel
Well,
that was
absolutely.
I think you'd feel it was worth breaking your leg to get it. So
Right.
anyway, so poor old Frederick. He's actually the last Prince of Wales not to go on to become king. But I mean,
Oh.
as I say, he has the consolation perhaps of dying of a cricket injury, so it's not all bad. So that's what's happening in the 18th century. But then into the 19th century, more and more of Kennington Common is getting enclosed. So the gallows goes. Then in 1805, I thought this was really interesting. I hadn't realized this, but actually the gas holders, iconic part of the Oval skyline, are actually older than the Oval itself. I hadn't realized this because it goes back to 1805, and South London Waterworks they build two reservoirs. They're pumping the water out from the Effra, the river that flows nearby. However, the Effra, and this won't surprise Fergal Sharkey, rapidly becomes too polluted for human consumption. And so the waterworks close in 1847, and the site is bought by the Phoenix Gas Company. And so that's when the gas holders go up.
Okay.
So they're very old.
So for the first couple of years, it was a reservoir over on that side, and then after two years of the Oval, that was when
too many poos
the gas
floating
holders
around.
the gas holders. Too many poos floating around, as it was, as it ever will be, and then 2 years later, the gasworks started to rise from the rise from the beds of the reservoir.
Yeah, and so I think what you're getting there is it's fairly foul smelling, and there are also complaints
Yeah.
of unpleasant odours coming from the actual site of what will become the Oval Cricket Ground. Because on the 8th of January 1835, the Duchy of Cornwall, and of course the Prince of Wales is also the Duke of Cornwall, so this is part of his estate, grants a lease of 90 years to a family called the Otters, which is, so we've had a badger got hanged, and now we have the Otters, on a nursery and garden ground in extent about 10 acres called the Oval, with buildings thereon. So it's we said it's called the Oval because of the curve made by the kind of the meanderings of the Effra. And you have this garden, this market garden that is apparently a disgrace, and people complain about it, that it is in a most ruinous condition, and from the effluvium arising from decayed vegetables, a nuisance and a source of ill health. So, I mean, it's clearly a terrible place. You have stinking vegetables, you have turds floating in the reservoirs. It's really, really noxious. And meanwhile, cricket lovers are saying, where are we going to play cricket? It's all being swallowed up. It's terrible.
Where?
And the one place that really isn't being built up, because it obviously stinks so much, is this market garden next to the reservoir. The reservoir gets drained, the gas holders go up, so it maybe doesn't smell as bad. And so people think, why don't we take over the market garden? I think the gas is all right. I think you can probably cope with that. And in March
Yeah.
1845, a lease is signed with the Otters. I love that. It's like
It's
Beatrix
wonderful.
Potter or something.
Absolutely wonderful.
For 31
It's like the animals
years.
of Farthing Wood.
And they
Can you
decide
imagine
that
the little pen in its little hand?
they're going to turn this foul-smelling market garden into a cricket ground. And they, it's obviously in a terrible condition. So they actually import the turf from Tooting Common. It costs them £300. They need 10,000 kind of squares of turf, and they bring it up to the site of the Oval. They lay it down. That's the first pitch, and the very first match, John, at the Oval is played a historic date on the 13th of May, 1845, and the team that wins is it's led by a guy called William Houghton, who is president of a club called the Montpellier Cricket Club, and they had originally been based in
Yes.
Woolworth, kind of based in a pub, which lots of cricket teams in London were. But the landlord there wants to sell the ground to developers, and so this is why they've been looking around. This is why they've bought the ground, the lease of the ground, which will become the Oval, and the guy who basically is responsible for this is William Houghton, whose 11 plays in the first match. And you, like me, live on Brixton Hill, and it will delight you to learn that William Houghton was a chemist on Brixton Hill. So, hooray for Brixton! Yeah,
hooray for Brixton!
Yeah,
it really does sound like a terrifically modern problem that William Houghton has as well, in that he's very happily got a very happy cricket ground, very happy cricket club, playing on a very happy cricket ground, which is sadly trying to be ripped from him by developers. This is, we're talking, this is the middle of the 19th century, and we're really talking something that remains a modern problem.
Yeah, it is. And William Houghton is actually, I mean, on this occasion, he's on the side of the Angels, but as we will see, he's a bit of a shyster himself. So although in a sense he's the godfather of the Oval, he's not entirely a godfather to celebrate. But let's see what happens. So he has done this as in his role as president of the Montpellier Cricket Club, and of course the initials of the Montpellier Cricket Club, MCC. We could have had two cricket grounds being run by the MCC. However, the reason that doesn't happen is that
you still have the Montpellier Club at the Oval, of course, as well, just next to the away team dressing room, in the back of the Bedford stand. If anyone wonders what the seats are there that look a little bit like, let's say, sort of good airline seats or something, that is the Montpellier Club. It exists in tribute to our forefathers to this day.
Yeah, kind of a monument to William Houghton and the Montpellier Cricket Club, that perhaps they don't deserve, because they are. Within even as they buy the Oval, they're already in real financial trouble, because basically they've spent too much for it, and so they come up with various wheezes to try and get around this problem. And my favourite solution, which we will be looking at in greater detail in a future episode, is that they allow the ground to be used for the exciting sport of pedestrianism. And pedestrianism basically consists of a bloke walking up and down the outfield. And in the late summer of 1851, a man from Sheffield has set himself the challenge of walking 1,000 miles in about 3 weeks. And it's hugely exciting. Does he make it? Well, we will see in a later episode. So, tune in later.
1,000
miles in 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
That's impressive.
I mean, that is heroic.
But
that's extraordinary. Well, tune in. Does he make it? Indeed.
Well,
I want to find out.
But what we will reveal at this point is, in the earlier episode, we said that the Oval was the home of sports lighting, and this is the occasion for when sports lighting is invented. So it's reported in the Morning Advertiser, which is obviously the go-to place for sports news. And it says that so many spectators have crowded into the Oval to see this exciting display of pedestrianism that Houghton is desperate to keep them there all through the night. And so what he does, a number of variegated lamps have been placed on the most conspicuous parts of the course, and one placed on each of the stakes that hold the ropes that form the ring in which the in which the Sheffield man is doing his pedestrianising. So very, very exciting. Massive crowds build up, but we're not going to spoil it by saying whether he does it or not at this point. We'll do that in our later episode when we look at all the sports that have been played at the Oval that are not cricket. So that's one way he tries to make money. The other way in which he tries to make money, which as someone who works at what used to be the Foster's Oval won't come as a surprise to you, is that he opens a pub on the ground, which is the precursor of the Surrey Tavern. But John, very sadly, it has its license withdrawn very rapidly following complaints from local householders of rowdyism.
Rowdyism. My word. So let's just to go back over the last 10 minutes. We've had effluvium, pedestrianism, and rowdyism.
Yes, we have.
Now, if that isn't an episode title, I don't know what and bricks. I don't know what is.
Well, so that's all very exciting. What I think is slightly less exciting is that they also open a poultry show on New Year's Day, and they set up 900 pens in which all these exciting chickens are going to be displayed. But then the Prince of Wales withdraws permission for them to. So I don't know why they're allowing pedestrianism and all this kind of stuff, but not allowing chickens. But I would have thought it's not very good for the wicket to have a load of chickens scratching around. Anyway.
No, probably not. Also not very good for the chickens to be shown on New Year's Day when it's freezing.
Well, they're not, though, because it's cancelled. And, of course, the pub has been shut down, and there's only so many stars of pedestrianism. So, basically, the corollary of all this is that Houghton's finances continue to tank. And so, in 1854, as a kind of a financial wheeze, he hands the lease over to his brother. And this is reflective of the fact that the future of the Montpellier Cricket Club is in chaos, and therefore the future of the Oval is in serious doubt. So it could never have happened. However, a couple of saviours, John,
9 years in,
are hoving into view. And one of these, you'll be delighted as an employee of Surrey County Cricket Club, is the Surrey Club, which is founded on the 22nd of August, 1845. And as is traditional, of course, they all meet up in a pub, because the whole early history of cricket is basically about people meeting up in pubs. And it's specifically the Horns Tavern, which is the junction between Kennington Road and Kennington Park Road. So it's kind of opposite the park.
Yes.
I think there's a kind of chemist there or supermarket there now.
There's a post office opposite the post office.
Right. Yeah, that's right. And
and a NISA local.
That's right. Yeah. They and kind of the various representatives of about cricket clubs from across Surrey. So there are about 100 people there, all meet up. And it's reported in the Sunday Times. It was proposed to form a cricket club for the county of Surrey, the objects of which would mainly be to seek out and to bring together the playing strength of the county, with a view of placing Surrey in the prominent position it had for many years in days long since past held in the cricket world. So I think there's a sense that Surrey had been the original home of cricket, and now kind of, upstarts like Kent and Sussex have been kind of gate crashing. And so it's time that Surrey reclaimed its place in the sun. So
how dare they? I think it's also wonderful, Tom, to look back and think that in 1845, 179 years before we record this podcast, the Sunday Times, even then, were looking back at cricket in days long since past.
Yeah. So things we need to get back to the good old days. Yeah, I mean that cricket is a game that is perpetually in love with nostalgia. I mean that
constantly harking for the good old days.
True. So essentially, this is the same time as the Montpellier Cricket Club are setting up at the Oval. So there are basically two clubs, as the Montpellier and Surrey, and they share the ground. Surrey Club play all its matches at the Oval. But as Houghton's fortunes decline, the Montpellier Club's fortunes decline, Surrey is kind of there's an opportunity there. And so they say to Houghton, look, we'll buy you out. Why not? But Houghton doesn't want to do it. And by this point, he would rather sell the Oval up altogether than see Surrey replace his cricket club which is maybe not good business, but you
No.
can, it's entirely understandable. You'd
Houghton.
want to spite your,
Houghton.
you'd want to, you wouldn't want to see
Yes.
your cricket ground in someone else's hands. I entirely sympathise with that. So that's,
Yeah.
but
Come on,
Surrey is there
Houghton.
waiting to potentially to buy it out. So they are one possible body of saviours for the Oval, but the other, amazingly, is a German. So
Again.
again, like Prince Frederick, and
Two
again, this is a
Germans in 2 episodes. Yeah.
royal figure, and of course, it's probably the most famous German member of the royal family. It's Prince Albert, who is the husband of Queen
Prince Albert.
Victoria.
Yeah.
Of
course.
And he is acting on behalf of the young Prince of Wales, who is the nominal owner of the site on which the Oval is standing, and he gives his royal backing to the Surrey Committee. So again, it's this idea of the people in the form of all these lads who've met up in the pub to set up the Surrey Club, and Prince Albert, and they
Royal and the people.
Yes, exactly, and with the backing of Prince Albert, Surrey decide to go on the offensive, and they say that what they're going to do is they will leave the Oval and they will set up a ground in Brixton by Cold Harbour Lane. And part of me is quite sad that they didn't do that. But of course, the implication of that is that if they do that, then Houghton will have no one to sell it to, and so he realizes basically that he's beaten. You can't argue economics, and you can't argue with Prince Albert, and so finally he gives up. He comes to terms, and in 1855 he declares bankruptcy, and the Surrey Club take exclusive possession of the Oval, and Prince Albert arranges the lease, which had come via the Otters, to come directly from the Prince of Wales. So the Otters, I'm afraid,
So
are cut out of the story as well.
Otters?
Who knows what happens to the
Otters? Oh no! Poor
They
Otters.
kind of hang around looking cute, I imagine. I don't know. Who knows?
They slipped off into the River Effra and swam away.
Yes. So we now have the Oval. It's a cricket ground, and we have Surrey, who have obtained control of the ground, and everything starts picking up from this point. So 1857, so that's 2 years after they've taken over, Surrey win every single match that they play except for one against Manchester. So interestingly, not Lancashire at that point. It's Manchester, and even that they lose by 3 runs.
An original team from Manchester.
And they also host the gentlemen against players, which of course is a very classic match, isn't it? It goes right the way up to the 60s, and that reflects the fact that gentlemen are not paid, professionals obviously are, and you put initials in different places on the scorecard, don't you? So I think a gentleman has his initials in front, and a professional, has his initials afterwards, and it's kind of Downton Abbey expression of cricket. The kind of the upstairs and the downstairs.
Yeah. The upstairs and the downstairs. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Can you imagine, again, one of those games the idea of it being played now is wild.
Yeah, but it was a really kind of important part of the fixture list, wasn't it? For seasons after season. And so it's again, the Oval is there at the beginning. They host the very first match. So hooray for the Oval. And then in 1858, Surrey actually play England. So a team drawn from other counties. And not only did they win, but they win by an innings and 28 runs. So hooray for Surrey.
Come on, Surrey.
And
Come on, Surrey.
John, we've talked about how we're going to do an episode and nominate our choice for the best captain that Surrey has ever had. So one of the candidates, I reckon, would be the guy who is captaining Surrey at this point. And he's a man called Fred Miller, who is an unbelievable disciplinarian.
That is a no-nonsense.
He's so no-nonsense
name.
He's
Fred
no-nonsense by name, no-nonsense by nature. Very, very strict, but very, very charismatic, very, very formidable. A local lad born in Clapham. And he's so devoted to the club that he actually buys a house that overlooks the Oval, which I think is, that's tremendous commitment. And I guess people might have called him the gaffer then. Do you think? I mean, he's
I think
tough,
it's possible.
stern, strict. Everyone has to have their boots polished, kind of military discipline. He's
Yeah, yeah.
unsurprisingly, he's not a kind of flamboyant, flashy batsman. He's resolute. He occupy the crease, useful medium pace bowler, brilliant fielder, and a famous England cricketer. So this is Jem Grundy, who he's kind of round arm bowler, but he's also celebrated for being the first man ever to be given out handled ball. He said of Miller that his captaincy was worth 50 runs in the field for Surrey. So
Wow.
so I think we should mention him. I mean, a spoiler, he's not going to be he's not going to win the best captain award, but he should feature there.
But he's in the conversation.
Definitely.
There's a quote I think you've dug up here, Tom, that I love. I'm just gonna just read this out. It just says this is about Fred Miller. He said he had no gentleness of manner, no, and he did not suffer fools gladly, and he played to win unflinchingly, and friend and foe knew it.
That's what you want, isn't it?
To be described as having no gentleness of manner is just wonderful.
Yeah, but
absolutely,
but the results speak for themselves. And to this day, here we are talking about him. So that's good on him.
Talking about the Victorian gaffer.
Yeah. So they've got Surrey are kind of they're getting good headlines in the sports press. They've also built their first pavilion, which actually, so John, I'm in my house in Brixton as we record this, but you were in the commentary box at the Oval, looking across the sacred turf towards the pavilion. But actually, the original pavilion was meant to be on the side where you are, but local householders didn't want it, and so that's why it's on the other side.
Yeah, well, I'm glad the club continued. In those days, also took the wishes of its residents nearby very seriously as well.
Yeah, well, so
long-standing relationship.
Things continue to get better because there's still, although the actual pitch has been given, the leasehold has been given directly from the Prince of Wales. The Otters still are still on the scene, so they hold the area where the ground where where Surrey want to put up stands, and in 1876 they get this leasehold as well. So the Otters now move out permanently from the story. And all kinds of exciting developments are now starting to happen. So in 1876, rather improbably, the club get permission to build a roller skating rink in the hope that, and I quote, the profits therefrom would enable them still further to extend their operations in the furtherance of cricket, as well as to enlarge their sphere of utility as purveyors of athletic amusements for South London.
This is wonderful.
But that doesn't work out. So they do lay the rink out, and then they think better of it, and they convert it into a place for nets. So I'm going to be honest, I think that's a better use cricket for the land.
First and foremost.
1877, they rebuild the Surrey Tavern. So no rowdiness now.
Great.
It's all going well. People are behaving themselves. So
it's a shame.
The beer is flowing. And then in 1880, now that they've got the land where they can build the stands, they construct the first elevated stands, and they are using soil that's been excavated from the culverting of the Effra. So this is when the Effra finally vanishes, and the earth that they've dug up for doing that goes up and forms the stands. And then in 1895, the pavilion that you, John, are looking at right now, so very, very handsome late Victorian building, is built.
Yeah.
And the guy who designs it, he also, I think, designed the pavilion at Old Trafford.
Yes, so, Mr. Thomas Muirhead.
Yeah, so the Oval that we would recognise now is starting to come into shape. You've got the pitch, you've got the stands, you've got the pavilion, you've got the leasehold. You haven't got any Otters. It's all going brilliantly. So
no effluvium,
no
rowdyism.
Yeah, no reservoirs with turds floating in it. It's all brilliant. And what is also brilliant is that Surrey, the team, are, things are going brilliantly well for them. So
this is
They had been in
Wonderful to
decline.
hear.
So in 1871, I'm afraid to say they didn't win a single match. But then in the 1880s,
Oh,
as these stands are going up and the pavilion, everything, they blaze it. And in 1890, they win the first official county championship. They win it the following year, the year after
yes.
that, 1894, 1895, and 1899. So basically, the
Keep
1890s,
up.
they're absolutely dominating it. So that's great.
It's amazing.
But
Yep.
it all goes to pot in the 20th century. So you'll know this, of course,
no.
as a keen Surrey statistician, that in the first half of the 20th century, they only win one championship, don't they? And
Yeah.
that's an
Yeah.
ill-fated year because it's 1914. So the year the First World War
It's
breaks
given
out.
to us as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is an argument amongst cricket statisticians to say that that championship should be asterisked because it was given in a should we say metaphorically smoky room in Lords because the championship was cut short that year.
And what's your
it
personal
was
view on that?
decided to
I mean,
I
that's
think
clearly
we'll
nonsense,
take it.
isn't it? I think so. You don't want an asterisk.
I think we'll take it.
Because I think in
no
a way,
asterisk. It's 1940. As good as any. As good
yeah,
as
the
any.
country's rallying around, getting ready for war. I think it's expressive of the war spirit, and I think it would reflect badly on, it would show a lack of respect for the war effort.
Absolutely.
If that championship
It's important. It's important to end the story. It's important to end the story. You needed a winner, and I think I will go with the decision that was made in the smoky room. Probably also 1914, a literally smoky room in Lords.
Great. Okay, so that's sorted. So Surrey does have that to hold on to, and the other thing it has to hold on to, and I think in a way this compensates massively for the fact they're not actually winning really anything, is that they do get their ostrich feather crest. So we talked in the previous episode, and you're wearing it right now. So for the benefit of those who are not watching the video, John is thrusting the feathers on his top in an almost erotic manner at the camera. And
almost.
And this is the crest that comes from the Prince of Wales, going all the way back to the Black Prince. And Surrey get it thanks to their guy, a guy who's captaining them in the early years of the 20th century, who goes by the brilliant name of Henry Primrose. So you can imagine his name on the scorecard.
Wonderful.
But he's not actually called Henry Primrose because he is actually Lord Dalmeny. And in due course, he will become the 6th Earl of Rosebery. But that's not until, he doesn't do that until 1929, because that's when his dad dies. And his dad, who was the 5th Earl of Rosebery, had actually been Liberal Prime Minister in the 1890s, only for a couple of years, 1894 to 95. Wow. And he's a great
second Prime Minister after Gladstone.
Correct.
Second Prime Minister that we've come into contact with.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is great. We're ticking them off.
He is, he's the Prime Minister during the trial of Oscar Wilde. And I mention that because Oscar Wilde gets into all kinds of trouble because Oscar Wilde is having an affair with the Marquess of Queensberry's younger son, Alfred Douglas. And so the Marquess of Queensberry starts kind of harumphing and calling Oscar Wilde a somdomite and all this kind of thing. But he's also persecuting the Prime Minister, the Earl of Rosebery, because his eldest son, so the elder brother of Alfred Douglas, Wilde's lover, had been the Prime Minister's private secretary, and then in 1894 had died in very mysterious circumstances after being shot during a shooting party. And all kinds of dark rumors. Was this an accident? Was it suicide? Was it perhaps murder? Because the rumor is that the Earl of Rosebery had been having an affair with the Marquess of Queensberry's eldest son. So the Marquess of Queensberry is pairing the Earl of Rosebery with Oscar Wilde and kind of threatening them both. So that's all going on in the background. The Prime Minister had married Hannah de Rothschild, who is part of the Rothschild family, very, very wealthy, and they'd been a very devoted couple. But I'm afraid to say that the Earl of Rosebery was, despite being married to a very famous, into a very famous Jewish family, was a massive anti-Semite. and worried
Oh
that
no.
Harry Primrose, his elder son, the guy who will become Lord Dalmeny and Captain Surrey, had looked too Jewish. So that reflects very badly, I think, on the Earl of Rosebery. However,
Yeah, I think it does.
John, Harry Primrose, Lord Dalmeny, his son, who becomes
Yes.
captain of Surrey and holds that post between 1905 and 1907, he's a very good captain. He's very energetic, very capable, and it is said of him that his fairness, humour, and authority gained him instant admiration and respect. And I think what's very impressive about him is that even as he's captaining Surrey, he's also being elected MP for a
No.
a constituency. I mean, not in Surrey, but in Scotland, Edinburghshire, it's called. So that's
It's Scott.
in Lothian. So there's a great Liberal landslide in 1906, and
Wow.
he gets elected to Parliament. So,
Yeah.
but fortunately, of course,
Oh
as
my
captain
gosh.
of Surrey, the Oval is just down the road from Westminster, so he can captain his team and then go off and vote in the House of
Not
Commons. Well, actually, the House of Lords, wouldn't it?
not down the road from. Yeah, not down the road from Edinburghshire though.
No.
So probably not
convenient for that.
not a well-known face to his local constituents.
So anyway, so he's a mover and shaker, and he is the godson of Edward VII. So he's the guy who'd been Prince of Wales throughout Queen Victoria's reign. So very much a friend of the Oval, and Lord Dalmeny is also a friend of the current Prince of Wales, who'll be the future George V. So basically, he can ask them, and he says, "Look, could we use your princely crest to be the crest of Surrey?" And they say, "Yeah, that's fine." So I think that's great. That's an absolute plus for Surrey in the 1900s, even though they're not actually winning the championship. Yeah. However,
but
John,
yeah.
Although Dalmeny is very, very proud of this, as he would be, the thing that in the long run makes him proudest is that the role that he plays in launching the career of a very, very promising young batsman. And this batsman is a young lad from Cambridge called John Berry Hobbs. And Dalmeny selects him.
Yes.
He's had to qualify for 2 years to register for Surrey. And he's now qualified, and Dalmeny immediately selects him. And Hobbs plays his first match. It's against the Gentlemen of England, who are captained by W.G. Grace. And Hobbs, he's out for 18 in his first innings, but in his second innings, he scores 88. In his second match, and this is against Essex in the county championship, he scores 155. And Dalmeny is, he says, this guy is brilliant. I'm going to give him his county cap. So after only 2 matches. And of course, Hobbs will go on to become, well, should we be upfront about it? He is going to be the guy that we, between us, have decided is Surrey's greatest player. The what would you call him?
The goat.
No, he'd be the Guspa Oat, the greatest Surrey player of all time. And we will be looking at the career of Hobbs in a subsequent episode, so episode 4. But before we do that, we will be going back in time to look at probably the match maybe for which the Oval is most famous, and that is the match that gives rise to the notion of the Ashes. So that's what we'll be looking at in the next episode, is the role that the Oval plays in this great sporting rivalry, international sporting rivalry between England and Australia. So that is the next episode. So I hope you've enjoyed this one, and if you have, I hope that you will enjoy the next one. And we will see you for the Oval and the birth of the Ashes. So bye bye.